Welcome to Open for Business, the Gallatin Valley's only local business and consumer talk show featuring Tom Eaglehoff, the Man Entrepreneur magazine radio called the leading authority in the United States for doing business in small town. Here he is, speaker, author, small business consultant, and Mrs. Eaglehoff's favorite son, Tom Eaglehoff.
All right, welcome everyone. Open for Business. We air every Saturday live from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Mountain Time on AM 1450 KMMS in Bozeman, 1340 KPRK in Livingston, Montana. If you'd like to be a part of the big broadcast, go to kmmsam.com and click Listen Live. The call-in number during the show, 406-522-TALK, 406-522-8255. I'm here, you're here. Let's get the show on the road.
Let's get back to Open for Business on News Radio AM 1450 KMMS Bozeman. Lines are open at 522-TALK. That's 522-8255. Here he is. He's big, he's bad, and he's open for business. Tom Eaglehoff.
Well, thank you, Dan. 25 minutes before the top of the hour. It's Saturday, December 17th, 2016. Tom Eaglehoff in the house, and want to welcome you to the podcast portion of Open for Business. Each week I share some tips and tricks I've learned over the years about advertising, marketing, promotion, and building strong, successful businesses. And if you missed any of my previous podcasts, you'll find them all on my YouTube channel. And while you're there, why not subscribe to my YouTube channel? You'll never miss another weekly podcast. And you'll also find a podcast link to my website, or at my website, smalltownmarketing.com, smalltownmarketing.com. And today's topic, we want to talk about small-town radio advertising, how to make it work for your small business. Now, in small and medium-sized towns, radio can be a real bargain. Even so, that doesn't mean being on radio would generate instant sales for your business. Like any other form of advertising and marketing, there's do's and don'ts that apply. So here's a few tips to consider before making the plunge into radio advertising. Radio formats are all over the board. We got talk radio, easy listening, rock, country, oldies, new age, rap, the list goes on and on. So which station should you be on? Well, look at yourself. What stations do you listen to, and why do you listen to them? There's a specific sound you like, and that's what you listen to. Now keep in mind that this thinking may not carry over to your customers. Just because you like a station doesn't mean they do. You need to ID the traits of your ideal customer and match those to the station or stations your customers are listening to. Now follow me here, this is very important. The sound of your commercial should not deviate from the sound of the station. So what do I mean by that? Would you try to sell season tickets to the symphony on a heavy metal rock station? Would the sounds be contradictory? Would the listeners tune out the symphony? The point to keep in mind is, you may have to create different ads for different stations. Most radio stations have the talent to produce your commercials as part of your advertising package. So if you need to produce something more exotic, then you might have some additional expenses. If your budget won't allow the expense, consider using the local DJ to read your copy live during his or her show. The listeners will be used to the voice, and it will give your spot credibility. This will not work with stations that are run by computers and have no live personnel. If that's the case, you may have to make a custom spot for some stations. Reach your ideal customer with small-town radio ads. The bottom line in any advertising is not how many people you reach, but how many buyers you reach. That's a difference. Radio stations work in demographics, and there's nothing wrong with that. Each station has a profile of their average listener. An audience may be males 25 to 54, college-educated, homeowners, hunters, pet owners. That may sound like the people you want to reach, but are they active buyers? Stations also rely on ratings. Ratings are studies taken at various times of the year, and stations base their advertising rates on numbers of listeners during those rating periods. You may have heard of May or September sweeps that TV does. Stations also do their heaviest promotion during these sweeps to inflate the listenership. In Bozeman, Montana, my hometown, we have 16 stations that reach about 80,000 listeners. The most popular are the talk radio, easy listening station, and the modern country station. Now, if I'm selling Cadillacs, which should I choose? Ratings and demographics aren't much help here, are they? But what if the talk radio audience has a yearly income in excess of $75,000 and the easy listening is only $50,000? Now which station would you choose? See, it really doesn't matter who's number one But who reaches the target market you want to reach, and who has the bucks to buy your product? So you need to consider cost per thousand or cost per customer. Now, how do you save on radio advertising? Well, radio costs are based on cost per thousand listeners to a particular show. What we're more interested in is the cost per customer. So how many customers will our spots bring in, and how much will they buy? Now, suppose your radio ad package costs $1,000 and produces one customer who spends $800 at your store. What was that worth? Well, a $200 loss is what it's worth. It really doesn't matter how many we reach, only how many buy. And can we profit from the advertising? First rule of advertising, it must pay for itself. Advertising must be an investment. It cannot be an expense. So how many times have you heard some car dealer or store owner trying to do their own commercials? Usually it's something they think is really funny but turns out to be just plain dumb. Or it's obvious they're just reading copy. It's not their own words and their own voice, and it sounds robotic. So why people do this is beyond me. You run a professional organization, you have a professional radio image. Have the experts do it. They don't try to do your job, don't try to do theirs. Now, small town radio advertising can be a real bargain. So what should it cost to be on the radio? Pricing can be all over the place depending on the length of your commercial, the time of day, how many times it's played. In some large cities, the cost might be out of reach for the average small business. Most stations will base costs on where they are in the ratings versus other stations. Top stations command the most money. Now, small town radio can also be a great public relations tool. Stations may read copy of news items about your company during their newscast. Send the station manager or news director or public affairs director sound bites, short one-liners that made Ross Perot famous. They aren't going to use a 15-minute tape of anything you have to say. If you're doing something in public, let them know. They may want to cover it and report on it later. Edit tapes of speeches to highlight the points you want to cover. Provide hard copy, paper transcripts that may be read on the air instead of your tape. Cover all your bases. If you can set up a weekly call-in show, do it. Most customers are loyal to their stations, and your business will have instant credibility. If you're an attorney, perhaps you can open or close a show with a legal tip. CPAs, medical attorneys, all are naturals for call-ins. The idea is create customers. People will feel they already know you from your radio show. And last but not least, some low-cost radio money savers. Compare the cost of a 30-second spot against a 60-second spot. One 60-second spot is usually 20 to 30% less than, or more than a 30-second spot. So use 60s whenever possible. It may be possible to barter your products or services for advertising time. Stations are always looking for promo items and giveaways. They may trade for all or part of your time. Radio is one of the best values for the small business person to get the word out. So do your homework and make it work for you. And that's the podcast. If you missed any of my previous podcasts, you'll find them all on the YouTube channel. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel or my website at smalltownmarketing.com, smalltownmarketing.com. So tune in each Saturday and let's build successful businesses together.